Thank you, member. The member for Fredericton South and leader of his party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm pleased to rise to speak on the amendment to send the bill to Law Amendments Committee, which is where it belongs, Mr. Speaker, particularly because it fails to provide self-government, real self-government through incorporated municipalities to about 70 small rural communities, Mr. Speaker, 70 small rural communities, which includes 61,000 people from around New Brunswick. Let me give you a flavor of this. In an area I lived in for a very long time, in western Charlotte County, in that rural district, you have the LSD of Dumbarton, the LSD of Macadam, the LSD of West Isles, which is Deer Island, the LSD of Whitehead Island, which is, as we know, out in the middle of the Bay of Fundy, about half an hour, 25 minutes ferry ride off of Grand Manan. So you look at that and you say, what really, how can you bring Macadam together with Deer Island, together with Whitehead, and have a single representative from those and many more of the LSDs in this rural district to represent them all on the Regional Service Commission? It just doesn't make any sense, Mr. Speaker. So you look at that. There's also the local service district of St. James, a portion of St. David, and most of St. Patrick. Now, communities pretty familiar with where they live, and these LSDs, the way they are, don't necessarily make that much sense to people. So, for example, in St. Patrick, in that LSD, that parish, you've got Elmsville, and as I always said, all roads lead to Elmsville in that part of the country. So Elmsville, maybe they have more of an affinity, there's not much around them when you think about it. So you'd have to ask them, and perhaps they would like to come before the Law Amendments Committee to speak to the MLAs. If you look at, as I said, West Isles has Deer Island. Now, why Deer Island? A Law Amendments, I'd like to hear from people from Deer Island why Deer Island wouldn't incorporate themselves like Campobello has, like Grand Manan has. I don't know, but it makes sense. They're an island. It's about a 25-minute ferry ride from Letite, it seems to me that it'd be interesting to hear why they're not their own incorporated place. So, you look at the parishes in that area, St. Croix, Dumbarton, St. David. Wawig is in St. Croix, and the communities around Wawig that really kind of feel more close to would be Greenock in Dumbarton, and Rolling Dam, and then Leverville and Oak Bay and St. David. So you can imagine, that's just, all I'm saying is those are sort of the communities that all the years I lived in Wawig, you sort of felt connected to. Elmsville was out there, and it was a nice place to go, and they have a great place for a Sunday supper there. But maybe Upper Wawig and Elmsville fit together better. I don't know. Maybe Upper Wawig would like to be with Lower Wawig. You don't know until they're asked, Mr. Speaker. But there's no apparent way out right now for any of these communities, and they don't even have control in this proposal, in this bill, over their local land base. So we need to hear from them. And that's interesting because when you look at this Regional Service Commission of Southwest New Brunswick. These rural communities, these 8 rural communities that would make up this rural district, represent 4,000 people, and that's in total the 3rd largest entity in southwestern New Brunswick, including, as I said, 2 islands. And the estimated tax base there is over $360 million. So you could imagine some combinations of communities getting together there, but they need a way forward to pursue that. Another area, Mr. Speaker, where I think it would be really important to hear from people is in Kings County, as soon as I can find them. And there you have, I'll get right to it. My Charlotte County page is well worn, I guess that's the problem. Yeah, so here you go. So in Regional Service Commission 8 area, you really have 3 entities. You have the town of Sussex with Sussex Corner, Village of Norton with pieces, most of Springfield and Norton LSD. And then you've got 12 rural communities, 12 rural communities comprising over 12,000 people with an estimated tax base of well, this says $1 billion. Yeah, $1 billion. $1 billion, that's extraordinary. All sitting in purgatory in this rural district. And while they don't have any islands, like Charlotte County does with Whitehead and Deer Island, they do have quite a diversity of communities that are strung over a large distance. So you think about the local service district of Cars, Belle Bay, which you know, Mr. Speaker, you're well familiar with because it's across the bay from you. Take the ferry and just take a little left there, and there it is. Beautiful spot, great people. And then you go all the way from there to the local service district of Havelock. It doesn't make any sense. I haven't spent much time in Havelock, but also great little place, good people. So you've got this huge number of rural communities spread out over a large different distance. So again, there needs to be a way forward for them to combine into some kind of collective of rural communities that make sense, that relate to their realities on the ground. And I wouldn't presuppose to suggest anything about them, but that this would be good for the Law Amendments Committee to hear from representatives from some of these areas. What makes sense? Makes sense. I mean, we'll say we'll agree there should be no community that doesn't have an incorporated local government. So what makes sense? And what's sustainable?
Down the corner there.
I think we might get some interesting proposals, Mr. Speaker, especially when you're looking at, it's extraordinary, 12,000 people in there. Now, the weird thing about this, of course, is this rural district of Regional Service Commission 8 would have 1 representative to the Regional Service Commission for 12,000 people with a tax base of $1 billion, and then the town of Sussex and Sussex Corner together would have 1, and Norton and Springfield together would have 1. And, you know, I mean, town of Sussex and Sussex Corner, their population is 5,700 people, $500 million $500 million in tax base. Similarly, Village of Norton and Springfield together, they're under 4,000 people. This rural district has 12,261 people. It doesn't make any sense. This has got to be fixed. It's got to be fixed. It can't go forward this way. And it is one of the examples, like the one in Charlotte County I gave, 2 examples, where it really does look like they were just kind of jammed into this purgatory, and yet weren't apparently offered, certainly not in the legislation, a clear way to move forward. So that needs to be clarified. And in that process, Mr. Speaker, we need to hear from them about what might work. And that's democracy, Speaker. I know the Conservatives have introduced a motion, the government has introduced a motion for time allocation. It's a very polite way of limiting debate, at least a polite label for that. And, you know, the Liberals, when they were in government, the official office when they were in government, did the same thing all the time, and the Conservatives complained about that. So it's a tactic that's used when government doesn't want democracy to get in the way of their excellent plans, at least the plans that they feel are excellent and without fault, without the need for any improvement. And that just is never the case, Mr. Speaker, and particularly for such a fundamental and important change that will have ramifications for a long time, and a potential, Mr. Speaker, to really engage New Brunswickers in their local communities, it's done right, as real, truly active citizens, to really be part of the body politic locally. Now, I know, you know, we've kind of slid into this slumber in many parts of the province where we're so used to government doing things to us rather than being part as citizens of a local government to take command, take hold of your own future. That's not an easy thing to break out of that mindset. I understand that. It's not easy, which is why, Mr. Speaker, as part of this, and it really should be in the bill, there needs to be capacity building for active citizenship, and the related piece to that, which is capacity building for local governance, for local governments and government officials, elected officials. So that would get after the democratic deficit quite well. But I can't get over, I guess, the Regional Service Commission 8 problem here, because it's probably the one that shows most explicitly the Achilles heel of the bill here. It seems to me that the only way to move forward on this is to hear from people, and hear from others, hear from academics, experts in local governance, and try and make some sense of this sort of alphabet soup of rural communities that run from Havelock to Cars and right through Waterford. So the same would go for the Charlotte County example. Even more complicated in a way because of the islands. Islands have special challenges in terms of particularly islands that are dependent on ferries in so many ways, and and I'm sure they're concerned about maintaining their island way of life. So many New Brunswickers, we're a rural province, are concerned, rightly so, about maintaining their rural identity. You add on to that islanders, and that's a sort of another layer, because there is an island culture built on top of the rural identity, New Brunswick's rural identity. There's an island culture. They're rural, but as islands, they're different places. Wonderful people, and hardworking, creative, and tremendous sense of community like so many other places. So let's hear from them. Let's hear from them, and let's take the advantage with regards to other parts of the bill, particularly the items around planning and how the bill proposes to bring about planning across the province let's hear from those with expertise in rural planning. That's a specific kind of field, and we would benefit from hearing from them, I think, in terms of trying to, and this is all about trying to come up with appropriate amendments to improve the bill. And I don't know why the minister would be reluctant to see the bill improved, made even better. So we have that opportunity here, Mr. Speaker, and let's utilize it by sending the bill to Law Amendments Committee. We don't use Law Amendments Committee enough. Of course, it wouldn't be subject to the motion that's going to be debated on time allocation. So we'd have the time needed to do the right job, the best job possible for the people of this province, particularly those living in small rural communities in every corner of New Brunswick. Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Member for Tracadie Charlotte.
Oh, wrong one. There we go. Thank you very much, Mr.